He was just a runaway boy with a dream until one night, soaked in blood and betrayal, he crashed into the life of a man who should slam the door in his face. What began as shelter from the storm became something far more dangerous, trust, heat, and a bond neither could explain. But secrets don't stay buried, especially not when his father wants him silenced, and the man offering protection is hiding guilt of his own. When desire flared and lips almost met, fate pulled them apart with fists, lies, and a final betrayal that left one running, and the other watching from the shadows. Just when it seemed over, a burned letter reappeared, a ticket, a chance, a kiss that shattered everything they swore they'd never feel. But was it love or another trap? What do you do when the man you trust hands you everything you want, and it still feels like goodbye? The shouting started just as I stepped out of the shower. I froze, water still clinging to my skin. My towel sagged around my hips, but the voice my father's cut sharper than any chill, modeling. He bellowed from the hallway. "Is this what you've been doing behind my back?" I cracked the bathroom door. His massive frame stood over the kitchen table, fists clenched on a stack of printed emails, my messages with an agent, the ones I thought I'd deleted. The laptop was open, my inbox displayed like evidence. You want to parade around for money like he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. My heart pounded against my ribs, not out of fear, rage, shame, betrayal. Someone had broken into my laptop, probably my little brother, always snooping, always chasing approval. I took 2 steps into the hallway, towels still clutched. You went through my stuff. He turned on me like a storm. While you're under my roof, you'll know exactly what kind of man you're becoming. The slap came fast, unexpected. My cheek burned. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I walked past him, through the living room, wet footprints trailing like scars. I threw on the first clothes. I saw a hoodie, old jeans, grabbed my phone charger, a few crumpled bills from my drawer. On the wall by the front door hung a set of keys, my mom's old car. She hadn't driven it since she left. Neither had I, until now. "Don't you dare walk out that door," my father yelled, but I already had. The wind slapped my face the moment I stepped outside. Rain was falling in heavy slants, soaking through my clothes in seconds. I jumped into the car, shaking hands, fumbling with the ignition. The engine coughed, sputtered, then roared awake. I didn't look back. I drove, through back streets, past old playgrounds and gas stations. The phone screen glowed with 100 missed calls. I tossed it onto the passenger seat, let it die like everything else tonight. Somewhere around midnight, I pulled off the highway. The rain was heavier here, like it followed me. The car stuttered, lights flickering. I parked near a decrepit gas station, closed, boarded up. The world felt empty. I slumped into the backseat, wrapped my arms around myself, and let my breath fog the windows. For a moment, I thought I might cry, but instead I laughed, quiet, bitter. What a joke, 20 years old. Supposed to be someone, supposed to be special. Instead, I was soaked, shivering, and alone in a dead car, my dreams left behind like broken glass. I thought of the agent, the only person Hod ever said, "You've got the look." His voice played in my mind like a promise. You could be something if you get out of that place. Yeah, well, I was out now. I didn't know what tomorrow looked like. But tonight, I had nowhere left to run and no one left to disappoint but myself. The rain never stopped, and my thoughts they spun like a broken film reel. My father's voice kept looping in my head, tangled with the stinging echo of his hand across my face. Somewhere after 3 a.m., the cold crept into my bones. I curled tighter, using my backpack as a pillow. I kept hearing a buzzing sound like a phone on vibrate, but mine was dead, just my mind playing tricks again. I remembered my first photo shoot, the one I snuck off to without telling anyone. It wasn't glamorous. A dusty basement, cheap lights, a photographer who smelled like instant noodles. But for the first time in my life, someone looked at me like I mattered. Like I could be something. Head said, "You've got the kind of face people don't forget." I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. Lightning flashed. A sign flickered to life across the road, half lit, buzzing, photo archive, entry by appointment only. I squinted. Looked abandoned, but someone had left a coffee cup on the ledge. Steam curled from the lid. Someone was in there. My heart knocked once against my ribs, then again, louder. What was I doing, chasing a shadow, and yet I climbed out of the car anyway? The wind slapped me in the face again. Wet gravel crunched beneath my sneakers as I crossed the road. I had no plan, no phone, no money, no future. Only a name, the one on the business card I kept tucked inside my wallet like a lucky charm. Mark Elias Portraits, casting, editorial. Head looked at me once like I wasn't invisible. I stood in front of the door, fist raised. Rain poured off the awning in heavy sheets, soaking the back of my hoodie. I hesitated. If he opened this door, what would I say? And if he didn't, I took a shaky breath and knocked. The knock echoed louder than I expected. I pulled my hand back, half regretting it already. For a moment there was nothing but the hiss of rain, then the sharp click of a bolt. The door creaked open a few inches. A pair of dark eyes met mine through the gap. I could barely make out a face older, unshaven, wary. "Something you need?" His voice was rough, not angry, just tired. I swallowed. "Car broke down. I was just looking for your soaked." He stepped back and opened the door fully. A warm current of air rushed out, stale but safe. I followed it in like a moth to heat. The inside wasn't what I expected. Half studio, half storage. Photography gear stacked in corners, old lights, canvases leaning against walls. Dust clung to everything except the wood floor, which looked freshly mopped. "You shouldn't be out here," he said, walking past me. "Not at this hour. Not like that. Didn't have many options," I muttered. He turned. Name, Leo, a pause. Then he nodded once, more to himself than me. Mark. He disappeared into a back room. I stood in the center, dripping silently. Everything felt fragile, like a single word could shatter whatever this was. Mark returned with a towel and a dry t-shirt. He tossed them toward me. "There. You'll freeze in that hoodie." I stripped the wet fabric quickly, facing away. The air hit my bare back. I felt him watching, not leering, just noticing. I turned back and caught his eyes drop, then rise. "You got hit?" he asked, pointing to my cheek. "Not your problem." He raised an eyebrow. "Fair." Silence fell again. I rubbed my hands over my arms, not sure what came next. "You hungry?" he asked finally. Fine. You look like a ghost." I shrugged. "I've had worse nights." He pulled something from a cabinet, a can of soup, dented and dusty. "Sit down. You're not leaving in this storm." A metal folding chair screeched as I pulled it out. I sank into it, eyes on the tiny heater near the wall. "I didn't expect anyone," he said after a while, stirring the pot. "Let alone someone looking like they walked out of a Calvin Klein ad." I laughed once. It came out bitter. "I'm not a model. Not yet. You could be." I looked up. He wasn't smiling. "Guess we'll never know," I said, voice low. "I kinda blew up my life tonight." He didn't ask how. He didn't need to. The soup simmered. My stomach growled, betraying me. He poured it into a chipped bowl and slid it over. "Thanks." He nodded, leaning back against the counter, arms crossed. "You're not the first kid to knock on that door," he said quietly. "Most don't get this far. What happened to them?" He didn't answer. I stared down at the steam rising from the bowl. "Can I stay here?" I asked, "just for the night?" His jaw clenched. "One night," he said. "You sleep there." He pointed to a worn cot tucked behind a curtain. "You don't snoop, and you're gone by morning. Understood? I mean it. I get it." He studied me a moment longer, then disappeared into the back again. A door shut quietly. I sat alone in the warm, cluttered quiet. Every breath I took felt too loud. Somewhere in the next room, a radio hummed faintly jazz, or something close. The smell of dust and photochemicals settled into my skin. I wasn't sure if this place was safe. I wasn't sure if he was safe. But for now it was warm, and I wasn't outside, and that was enough. I lay down on the cot, the springs creaking beneath me. The blanket smelled like time-old cotton and something faintly metallic. I turned my face to the wall, but sleep didn't come. Through the curtain I could hear Mark moving, a cabinet opening, the click of a lighter, then a faint exhale smoke. Minutes passed, then footsteps. The curtain shifted. His silhouette hovered at the edge. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, though he couldn't see it. "You ever done this before?" His voice was quiet, careful. "What, run away?" He didn't laugh, but the air shifted. "Yeah, no. I guess I thought it'd feel freer than this." Another pause. "It doesn't, does it?" "No," I whispered. "Not really." He didn't move, didn't step closer, but the silence between us felt shared. "I'll lock up," he said finally. "Yell if you need anything." The curtain fell back into place, and even though I was alone on that cot, something inside me felt slightly less hollow. The storm hadn't let up by morning. Thunder rolled like distant furniture being dragged across the sky. I sat on the edge of the cot, pulling Mark's oversized t-shirt tighter around me. My own clothes were still drying near the heater. Mark stood at the window, watching the rain hit the street. He held a mug of coffee in both hands like it was armor. "Forecast says it won't stop until tomorrow," he muttered. I didn't reply. I was still trying to read him where the edges were, how close I could get before I triggered something. He glanced at me, then looked away. You sleep at all? Not really. Didn't think so. A pause. You hungry? Not really. Another pause. Right, he said. Of course not. He walked to the sink, rinsed the cup, and set it down. The silence was heavy, not awkward, just full of everything we weren't saying. I cleared my throat. You live here alone? Yeah. No family, not anymore. I waited, but that was all he gave me. He crossed the room and tossed me a dry pair of sweatpants. They'll be big, but better than nothing. Thanks. I stood, turning slightly away to change. I could feel his eyes, not leering, not invasive, just there. My shirt dropped to the floor. The new fabric slid over my skin, warm from the heater. I turned back. His gaze was fixed somewhere just past me, like he was pretending not to notice, but his jaw was tight. I sat back on the cot. You take photos in here? He nodded, gesturing toward the cluttered half of the studio. Used to, mostly portraits, some casting, nothing big. I stood and walked toward a wall covered in pinned photographs, black and white shots of strangers. Intimate angles, unposed, raw. They're good, I said. Thanks. Ever shoot someone like me? He raised an eyebrow. Runaway kids with too much cheekbone. Yeah, a few. I smiled. Guess I'm not that special then. Didn't say that. I turned. He was closer than I expected, just a few feet away. His eyes dropped again, this time to my mouth. Quick, reflexive, and I felt it, the heat between us, like a wire tightening. You should eat, he said suddenly. Storm's not going anywhere. I followed him back to the kitchen. He made oatmeal dry, bland, but warm. We sat at the narrow counter, elbows almost touching. You gonna go back? He asked eventually. To what? He didn't answer. I stared into the bowl. I don't even know where to go next. You don't have to figure it out today. I glanced at him. Why are you being nice to me? He hesitated. Because once someone wasn't. The words hit harder than I expected. We sat in silence for a while. Then, slowly, he reached out fingers, brushing the bruise on my cheek. You should let someone take care of you, he said. I swallowed. What if I don't know how to let that happen? He didn't speak, but his hand lingered. I turned toward him, just slightly. Our knees touched. His breath coffee, quiet, reached my face. He leaned in. So did I. The space between us collapsed until his forehead touched mine. We didn't kiss, but it was enough to undo something in me. His hand slipped behind my neck, light, hesitant. Mine settled on his chest, feeling the heartbeat, steady and real. Then a bang. The back door slammed open, wind whipping through the studio. We broke apart like snapped thread. Mark stood quickly, moving toward the sound. Just the storm, he said, voice rougher now. I stayed seated, heart pounding. The moment was gone, but it had happened, and that changed everything. Mark secured the back door, shoving a crate against it for good measure. Rain sprayed in sideways until he managed to latch it shut. He stood there for a second, back turned, breathing heavily. I watched him from the stool, pulse still hammering in my ears. When he finally turned, our eyes met. And for the first time, he looked away first. That silence stretched between us again, full of something unsaid, something fragile and heavy. "I'll clean this up," he muttered, bending to pick up fallen papers and boxes. I knelt beside him to help, but our hands collided over a stray photo. We both froze. His fingers lingered rough and warm. Mine trembled slightly, but I didn't pull away. When he finally stood, he held the photo between two fingers. A portrait, black and white. A boy, younger than me. Smiling. "Who's that?" I asked. He hesitated. "Someone I used to know." There was a story there, but I didn't ask. We each had ghosts. That night, I lay on the cot again, staring at the ceiling while the rain tapped the roof like a whisper. Everything inside me buzzed, not from fear, but from the closeness I hadn't expected and wasn't ready to lose. The rain finally stopped the next afternoon. Light filtered through the studio's high windows, gray but dry. I stood near the heater, pulling my hoodie over my head. It smelled like dust and old metal, but it was mine. I needed that reminder. Mark was at the sink, rinsing out paintbrushes for some project he hadn't explained. His shoulders were tense, quiet. We hadn't talked about what happened, the almost kiss, the shared silence. The space between us was thicker now, not uncomfortable, but charged. I was about to speak when the front door opened without warning. It didn't creak, it slammed. Mark dropped the brush. A man stood in the doorway, tall, stocky, leather jacket, buzzed hair, smirk like a switchblade. "Well, this looks cozy," he said. Mark moved fast, stepping in front of me. "You weren't supposed to come here, relax." The man scanned the room. His gaze landed on me. "So this is him, huh? The kid?" My stomach twisted. "Who are you?" "No one," Mark snapped. "He's no one. "Don't lie to him," the man said, still smiling. "You always lie when they start getting close." I looked at Mark. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "You know your little hideout secret didn't last long," the guy went on. "Kid's face is still all over missing persons feeds. You think no one's looking. Leave?" Mark said, but the man didn't move. "You're not gonna tell him that you already knew who he was when he walked through your door?" I felt cold. "What's he talking about?" Mark opened his mouth, closed it. "You knew," I whispered. "I figured it out," he said finally. "Later, I didn't know when you showed up, but you didn't tell me. I was trying to keep you safe. You were keeping control." The silence was louder than any shout. The man chuckled. "See, that's always how it goes. The lost ones show up. Mark plays savior, and it always ends messy. Get out." Mark's voice was low, shaking. "You gonna hit me again?" The man took a step back. "Didn't work last time either." He turned and left, the door slamming behind him. I stared at Mark. My hands were fists. "You lied to me. I was trying to protect you. That's not your decision. I didn't know how to say it, so you said nothing." I grabbed my bag. "I'm not some broken kid who needs fixing." "You're not broken," he said, almost too quickly. "Then why do you treat me like I might shatter?" He didn't answer. I crossed the room, shoved open the door. The world outside was damp but clear. He didn't stop me. I stepped onto the street, blinking against the light. Then I heard him quiet behind me. "If you go now, I won't stop you, but don't pretend it didn't mean something." I turned. His eyes were unreadable, and mine burning. "It did," I said, "and that's why I can't stay." I walked. Not fast, but not slow enough to turn around. I kept walking. The street was slick beneath my shoes, puddles reflecting telephone wires and gray skies. My bag dug into my shoulder, heavier than before, or maybe it was me. Behind me, the studio disappeared into silence. I didn't know where I was going, just away. 10 blocks down, a patrol car slowed beside me. I stiffened. "Hey, kid, you okay?" I nodded too fast. "You been out here long?" I gave a vague answer about a friend's house and being locked out. The officer scanned me, unconvinced, but eventually nodded. "Just stay out of trouble," he said, then drove off. My knees almost buckled in relief. I ducked into an alley behind a mechanic's garage and leaned against the brick, breath coming hard. I hated how close that was, hated how easy it would be to be dragged back into that house, that version of me. The one who never said anything, never left. The rain had stopped, but I was still soaked inside. I pulled out the card from my wallet. Mark Elias. His name felt like an ache now, but I couldn't go back. Not yet. I didn't last long on my own. The bus station was cold, the bench harder than it looked. I wrapped my hoodie around my knees and tried to disappear. But sleep didn't come, just voices, footsteps, headlights flashing too close. By morning, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, hunger, exhaustion. I checked my phone again, still dead. No charger, no plan. I wandered to a 24-hour diner and begged for water. The woman behind the counter gave me a half smile, like she knew what kind of kid I was. The kind who doesn't order food. The kind who doesn't belong. I left before she could ask questions. By nightfall, the headache had settled behind my eyes like a knife. I curled up behind a dumpster near a closed bookstore and pulled my hood over my face. I don't know how long I was there when I heard it, a truck engine. Low, familiar, then a voice. "Leo." I didn't move. The footsteps got closer. "Leo, damn it," I opened my eyes. Mark stood there, soaked from rain, his face unreadable. I didn't speak. I couldn't. He crouched down beside me. "You're freezing." "I'm fine." "You look like you're dying." "Maybe I am." He didn't smile, just reached out and touched my arm. His fingers were warm, mine weren't. "You should stayed away," I said. "I tried." "Did you follow me?" "No." His voice cracked. I looked everywhere. I stared at him. "Why?" "Because I couldn't stop thinking about you a beat." My throat tightened. He stood. "Come on, we'll talk later." I let him help me up. His truck was parked around the corner. The heat blasted as soon as he turned the key. I sank into the seat, eyes half closed. He didn't speak on the drive. Back at the studio, he guided me inside gently, like I might fall apart. I didn't resist. He brought me soup, a blanket, left me alone on the cot, but sleep didn't come. Hours passed. I stared at the ceiling, the shadows on the walls, the outlines of photographs I couldn't see clearly. I heard his footsteps before I saw him. He stood in the doorway, shirtless, holding a glass of water. "You awake?" he asked. "Yeah." He stepped inside, set the glass down, didn't move. "What are we doing?" I asked softly. "I don't know," he said, "but I can't pretend nothing happened. I don't want to be your project. You're not." I sat up. The blanket fell to my waist. Mark stepped closer. The silence was electric. He sat on the edge of the cot, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the heat of his body. His hand hovered for a moment, then brushed mine. Slow, careful, I leaned into it. His other hand came up, fingertips skimming my jaw. No words, just breath, the quiet ache of closeness, then a knock, loud, sharp, repeating. Mark stood, his body rigid. Again pounding, he moved to the door, pulled it open. 2 figures stood there, one in uniform, the other my father. I went cold. "You've got something that belongs to me," my father said. Mark blocked the doorway. "He's not a thing. You harboring a runaway?" the officer asked. "Because that's a crime. I'm 20, I said from the back of the room. I'm not a child. You're still on the missing list. I left voluntarily." The officer stepped inside. Mark held up a hand. "You don't have a warrant." "I don't need one if I'm retrieving someone reported endangered." My father pushed past. "Get your stuff now." I backed away. "No." "What did you say to me?" I said no. His hand twitched. Mark saw it. Touch him, and I swear Mark's voice was dark thunder. The officer stepped between them. "We're not doing this." "You're damn right we're not," I said, grabbing my bag. "Because I'm not going anywhere with him." I turned to Mark. "I'll be back. I just need to end this." His eyes met mine. "Don't disappear again." I nodded. My heart broke with the weight of it. Then I left with fire in my chest and my past breathing down my neck. We drove in silence. My father's hands gripped the wheel like he was trying to crush it. His knuckles were white. I stared out the window, watching the blur of streetlights and buildings pass like ghosts. He finally spoke. "You embarrassed us." I didn't answer. "You disappeared. Made your mother sick with worry. She left, remember," I said quietly. His jaw tightened. We pulled into our old driveway. The house loomed like a coffin, same cracked steps, same porch light flickering. Nothing had changed except me. Inside, the air smelled of dust and bitterness. I dropped my bag at the door. "You're not leaving again," he said. "I'll make sure of it." I looked him dead in the eye. Well, see, the house was too quiet. I sat in my old room, knees pulled to my chest on the twin bed. The posters were gone, the mirror cracked. My phone was plugged in now, charging slow. No messages, no calls, not even from Mark. I couldn't blame him. I walked away. Downstairs, the floor creaked, my father pacing. Every so often I heard the faint clink of ice in a glass. Head said I wasn't leaving again. I didn't believe him until I heard the door lock from the outside. That night I waited until the house went still. Then I slipped out the window. The ground hit hard, but I didn't stop moving. I ran 4 blocks, ducked behind a dumpster, and tried to catch my breath. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. "A single bar of service," I typed. "I shouldn't have left. I don't know where to go. Are you still there?" I sent it to Mark. Then I waited a minute, 5. Then the screen lit up. "Come home," that one word home, punched through my chest like lightning. I walked, maybe ran. I don't remember the details. I just remember the light spilling from the studio window. He opened the door before I even knocked. We didn't speak. I stepped inside. He closed the door. I stood there, soaked with sweat and air and silence. Then I broke. "I lied to you too," I said, voice shaking. He didn't move. I said I was strong, said I could handle everything, but I was scared of you, of what it meant to need someone. "I never asked you to be strong," he said softly. "I just wanted you to be real." I looked up. "You really want real?" "Yes." I took a step closer. "Then here it is. I wanted you from the moment you opened that door, and it terrified me. Another step. Because you looked at me like I was more than a runaway. Another. You looked at me like I was worth something." Mark didn't breathe. Or maybe I couldn't hear it. I reached him, put a hand on his chest. It rose and fell, slow and steady. Then I pressed my forehead against his. Our bodies aligned, not desperate, not explosive, just there. Warm, present, human. His fingers grazed my waist. Mine curled into his shirt. I was afraid if I stayed, I'd fall, I whispered. "You already did," he said. A pause, and so did I. His lips brushed mine, not a kiss, just the edge of one. Then the moment splintered. A knock, again, then a shout. "Police, open up." I jerked back. "How did they tracked your phone?" Mark said. It was only a matter of time. I moved to the window. A patrol car, 2 uniforms, my father pacing behind them. I backed away, panic rising. "I can't." Mark grabbed my hand. "Then don't. Go out the back." He shoved a bag into my arms, my things already packed. "You knew." I hoped I was wrong. We stared at each other. "This isn't the end," I said. "I know, but it felt like it." I ran. Back door. Alley. Night swallowing me whole. And still the ghost of his hand around mine burned like truth. I didn't stop running. Every shadow looked like a badge. Every car that passed made me flinch. the city blurred past silent windows, neon signs flickering above dark corners. I ducked into an alley behind a laundromat, gasping for air. My throat burned. My palms stung from a fall I hadn't felt. Above me a billboard glowed, a clean, cut model selling something I couldn't afford. His jawline looked like mine. Or maybe I just needed to believe that. I opened the bag Mark gave me, my clothes, a folded $5 bill. And at the bottom the card, "You have the look, let's talk." The agent's handwriting was smudged but legible. A number, a name I hadn't said out loud in days. Durek Winslow, New York. I sat on the curb. A car passed slowly. I tensed, but it didn't stop. My phone buzzed. One bar, one message. I meant it. It wasn't the end. I stared at the screen until the light dimmed. Then I stood, pulled my hood tight, and started walking east. I took the first bus east. Didn't matter where it stopped, just that it moved. Each mile stretched the thread between us thinner, but it never snapped. I sat by the window with my hood pulled low, watching towns drift past like ghosts. At a rest stop, I changed my shirt and brushed my teeth with bottled water. I looked in the mirror above the sink. I almost didn't recognize the boy staring back. He looked older, hollowed out, but sharper somehow. I turned away. I didn't call Mark. I didn't text. But I saved the message had sent. I meant it. It wasn't the end. The card from the agent was folded in my pocket. I hadn't dialed the number. Maybe I never would. I arrived in a small town I'd never heard of, not far from the state line. The sky was pale blue, the kind that looks almost white. I walked until I found a thrift shop, bought a second-hand backpack and a clean hoodie. Then I rented a room above a laundromat, paid cash. It smelled like bleach and loneliness. That night, I stood on the roof and looked up. There was only one star, and I thought maybe that's enough. The next morning I wrote a letter, didn't sign it, just wrote what I needed to say. Then I burned it in a tin coffee can behind the building. Some things aren't meant to be sent. I tried to move on, got a job washing dishes in a diner where no one asked questions, slept light, ate less. But I didn't delete his number. Every night I opened our thread, scrolled up, read his first message again. If you ever need a way out, you've got one. The night before I left again, I packed quietly, clothes, phoned that damn card. I stood in front of the mirror one last time, still me, still broken, but choosing my own cracks now. Outside the street was quiet. A cab waited, but before I got in I glanced back. There, across the street, was a man leaning against a lamppost. Arms crossed, hood pulled low. Even in the dim light, I knew the way he stood. My heart stopped. I blinked. He was gone. Maybe it wasn't him, or maybe it was just enough to know he could have been. I climbed into the cab and gave the driver a city. Not the city I came from, not the one I ran to, a new one, my own. As we pulled away, I pressed my forehead to the window and whispered, "Don't wait for me," but part of me hoped he would. The cab stopped at a light. I looked down at my phone again. His message still sat there. No reply from me. I hovered my thumb over the keyboard. Then the driver glanced at me in the rear view. "You sure about this city, kid?" I frowned. "Why?" He hesitated. "You look like you're waiting for someone to follow you." I didn't answer. The cab rolled on. We passed a corner store with a flickering neon sign, and that's when I saw it, a poster taped to the window. Missing a blurry photo, me, my name, my age, my father's number, but there was a second poster underneath it. Newer, printed clean, casting call, new faces needed below it. The name ID almost forgotten, Winslow Talent Collective. New York office and a handwritten note, "You've got the look." The cab pulled over a few blocks later. I got out, dazed. Wind whipped past, sharp as glass. I stepped toward the alley behind the store, and then a hand grabbed my wrist. Tight, real. I spun around. Mark, no words, just him, out of breath, eyes wild. How I started. He pulled out my letter. "The one ID burned." I froze. "I saw the smoke," he whispered. "The tin." "You think I didn't recognize the way you disappear?" I shook my head. "You followed me. I chose not to lose you." I stared at him. "You ran again," he said, "and I still came." Tears threatened my eyes. "Why?" "Because I'm tired of pretending I don't care." I laughed once, broken. "This wasn't supposed to be a love story." "It isn't," he said. "It's something worse, or better. I don't know yet," and then handed me something, a plane ticket. "New York, tomorrow, one way." I pulled every favor I had, he said. "That agency, they are expecting you. You did this. I believed you when you said you weren't nothing." I stared at the ticket. My hand trembled. "This is real," I whispered. "It's always been real." We stood in silence. The city breathed around us. Then I did the craziest thing I'd ever done. I didn't run. I kissed him. Not soft, not safe. hungry, alive. When we broke apart, his forehead rested on mine. "He'll find you there," he said. "Y'ad better." I turned, walked into the night with the ticket in one hand and my heart in the other. And for once in my life I didn't look back.